70K is the new $35,000, $40,000. I mean,
So true.
downtown Austin, where I've lived the past few years, one bedroom apartment in downtown Austin is about $4,200. It's flirting
Yeah.
with New York prices in Texas.
That's Welcome back to the Kris Krohn Show. I am here with Grant Mitterlehner. What's up, bro? How you doing?
What's up, man? It's good morning. Great to see you. Great to be on the podcast.
Grant, dude, you're flying off the charts as an up and comer, as an influencer, which is kind of funny for you because you're not really a content creator. You're just a successful entrepreneur that said, I'm just going to put a little of this in batch sequence online, and man, you're blowing up on your accounts.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Yeah, it's people are, I think, liking it, which is great to hear. I've just, like I said, day to day, I've always been running businesses and being an entrepreneur, but it's cool to put content out there that helps people. So it's same to you also.
I appreciate that. Mitt Group, for the last 2 years, has almost 300% growth at a time when the economy is definitely calling this. Well, they're not calling it a recession. We all know it's a recession. I mean, right now, I think we've got more bankruptcies in our country this year than we did after the pandemic started. So like, even though no one wants to fess up to it, and I don't think the Biden administration wants to admit to having created a recession, we're in one, and yet you're experiencing this explosive growth, man. Tell us more about you and how you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, well, it just starts with execution. It's like Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, you get to see who's swimming naked. And good times allows and sometimes even rewards bad behavior.
Yeah.
Meaning people that either doing the wrong things, are not working as hard as they should, aren't as good as they thought that they were, it gets exposed. And so, just in my industry, I was used to higher interest rates when I got into it. So when that came back, I never even made that a thing.
Yeah.
I was more focused on the ROI, but it forces you to become better.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've just always try to focus on, and anytime I'm struggling with something or I'm trying to get past and enter a new arena or a new level, I always just go back to, I need to get better. And if I was better, I wouldn't have these problems. If I was around better people, if I could hire better talent. And so I think it just kind of all boils down to that, just relentless effort, man. And hiring really great people and just working your ass off.
Yeah, my real estate business circulates very much around interest rates. And I didn't really understand the interest rate game until 2008. This is October, middle of October, I think on the 17th. And this is basically when the Great Recession was starting. And I knew the moment it started because I was trying to close on this home with Washington Mutual. For those of you that remember, that was a big bank before 2008, before they got shut down. And I was basically with one of my partners, I was buying one of my properties because that was my business model. I would basically, I knew how to earn high ROI on real estate, and I would find the deals and my partners would put up the money and then we'd split the ROI. And I had this sick deal lined up. I'd bought the house at a great discount. And the bank basically said, hey, we're closing tomorrow, but just FYI, we've gone from an 8% interest rate to a 16% interest rate. And I was like, wait, why are they doing that? They know that I'm not going to sign on this loan. They know that I didn't underwrite it personally for that. That's going to kill the cash flow. This deal wasn't built and structured around that. And I walked from the deal, and a week later, the bank was out of business. And that's when I started to understand the interest rate game, that when the Fed bumps up the rates up, they're basically saying, we need the economy to struggle and slug it out and figure it out. And then when we move into a recession, we're going to lower the rates to stimulate the economy. And so, in my business, 21, 22 was amazing for real estate because we were coming off of 10 years of free money with those crazy low 3, 4, 5% interest rates. And then the last 2 years, they've bumped up to, 7, 8, 9%. And while that now works perfectly for my business model, it scares the hell out of everyone. And no one wants to buy real estate because they think that after 10 years of adopting that low interest rate, that a high interest rate of 8 or 9%, they think it's high and they think it's bad when it's actually neither high nor bad.
The 80s, they were in the 20s, right?
Yeah, 18%, even as high as 20. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and you've got to be able to adjust your business model to make that work. My real estate is not impacted by that higher interest rate. It cuts cash flow down, but the overall ROI shrinks by goes from 60% to 59%, is very small. It's not a very big deal, but the last 2 years actually have been harder for me. We have not had 293%, growth over the last 2 years because we're managing the perception of real estate and interest rates.
But you know what? That's what's so great about your industry is that you're playing the long game and you can refinance in 2, 3 years when interest rates are lower and you still own
Yep.
the asset. So it's
Actually, that's actually the game that we tell them. We're like, I mean, well, we saw it, right? This last week, the NASDAQ was down 1,000 points. Historically, it's never done that before. We saw the markets. We saw $2 trillion evaporated, with over 500 billion of that coming from the top seven, stock, tech companies that everyone's aware of. And
right.
and so it's really it's kind of sad, man. I'm just leveling with you. When
Yeah.
the market gets hit, we get excited because we're like, yes, the Fed is dropping rates. Zillow just
Yeah.
reported 5.9%, and it's like, geez, that's like the best thing that could happen for my industry.
They're trying their best to keep the market. They're duct taping everything together to keep it intact for
Yep.
the Democrats are in control right now. So they're duct taping everything they can to push it through to try to get their own in. We'll see what happens. That's a whole nother conversation. But I mean, even if you look on the last 2 to 3 payrolls that they're releasing on job numbers, they showed the last one broke and unemployment, I think, went up to 4.3%, if I'm not
4.3.
mistaken.
Yep.
4.3. But if you look at the last few months on the job numbers, the majority of the jobs gained were in the government sector.
Yep.
So, like, for example, the last one was 70% government jobs. And so they've
Jeez.
been showing that they have way better numbers than they are, and it's not the case, which they've
Well,
been
and
doing
if you
quite some
look at the
time.
tech industry, they're doing mass layoffs left
Massive.
and right now.
Well, any small business has just been destroyed, and it's because the normal consumer just does not have the liquidity.
Mhm.
Because even if their income went from 70K to 84K, I mean, 70K is the new 35, $40,000. I mean,
So true.
downtown Austin, where I've lived the past few years, one bedroom apartment in downtown Austin is about $4,200. It's flirting
Yeah,
with New York prices in Texas.
it's
And that's
crazy.
just like one person. And
Yep.
so if you're not making 120, you can't survive
Yep. I
unless
think
you're in.
that's the I
Mhm.
think that's the theme across the country right now overall is, 30 years ago, $1 million today is $2.1 million. Like, you need twice as much. When we say a million's not what it used to be, it's like, oh my gosh, it really is not what it used to be. And so people have to get smarter. I remember reading Robert Allen's book in the early 2000s, and he was basically talking about how the Leave It to Beaver 1950s, you could literally have a single income earner
Yeah.
and you could cover everything. Now, compare that to Gen Zers today. Gen Z is literally making 86% less money than a boomer in their 20s.
Yep.
And that just goes to show that we needed a single income earning family in the 50s. By the 80s, one income was not getting by. By the 2000s, you needed a dual income earning. And right now, you need three incomes and maybe four. And it's going to change family formation. And it's going to change, there's people now getting side hustles and second jobs and third jobs, and they're still struggling.
And it bleeds into everything. And I think the cause that did that is as soon as they took the US dollar off the gold standard,
Yep.
that's when the floodgates went. And if you don't have assets, you're pretty much screwed from what
Yep.
I've seen,
Yep.
because the only way to keep the government operating and to
Yep.
not fully go bankrupt is to print money.
Yep.
And while we are kind of still the reserve currency of the world, it's shifting
It's
to where
kind of not. I mean, there's Brazil, number of European countries. There's a
BRICS
number of countries.
formation.
Yeah,
Right.
they're saying we're no longer backed by the U.S. dollar. It's too unstable.
No, and so I think you're seeing this ripple into everything. And like you said, family formation, people aren't getting married as much. They're definitely not having kids as much. And I think that has to do with affordability and the wife. Not only, yeah, more women are working too, but you need the wife to work now because, like
Yep.
you said, one income is not going to be enough. And so it's just everything is changing. And I think also you're going to start seeing people start playing the more international game. And
Yep.
I've already seen this with a lot of the
Oh
European.
yeah.
I'm sure you're the same. All of my entrepreneur friends, they got a place in Dubai, they have a place
Hmm.
here, they have a place there, and you see travel speed up. I mean, we're about another 8 to 10 years away from supersonic travel again, 20 from hypersonic. at probably 30, where you and I can get in a rocket and land in China in 45 minutes.
Yep.
And everything's going to go international. And if you aren't having multiple streams of income or enough to, really live the way that you want, take care of your family, I mean, it's just
Yep.
the game of business is changing.
Which is why when you look at this election year, Republican, Democrat actually means a lot because one's going to reduce taxes and one is going to increase taxes. And you look at how high they are right now, we're basically being taxed on so many different things that a lot of people don't look at inflation. They're like, oh, inflation is why my value is being devalued. I'm like, well, also look at the organizations that are keeping your dollars from you on
Exactly.
taxes. And so it's an invitation for people to become financially more intelligent and actually
Yes.
but the weird thing, man, Grant, is you're a natural serial entrepreneur. Like you've gotten that game since you were really young. You've had multiple wins in the different sectors that you're playing in. And yet I think most people are still financially very unequipped and educated on money. They're educated on careers, but they're not educated on how to financially get ahead.
And I will say that I think that's changing. And anytime I've gotten to the habit now of when I jump in an Uber or I'm traveling, I'm on an airplane, I just ask people what they do. What do you think about the election? Who are you voting for? What do you do for business? And you learn so much. And I will say is that social media has allowed a massive audience of people to learn information that they would have
Yeah.
never learned.
Yeah.
And people always sleep and talk a lot of shit on the Gen Zers,
Mhm.
but let me tell you something. I'm starting to meet some of these guys, and they are brilliant.
They
And
are.
they're not just going to go work for someone for 40 years unless there's something in it for them.
Yep.
It's just important. It's important for people to be financial literate. I mean, you talked about the two sides that are running. Just on the Democrat side right now, they have active proposals now, and they want to push this through with the next administration if Harris gets in, where they want to start taxing unrealized gains. And I don't
I
know
know.
if the bulk people don't understand what that means. That
No.
means that let's say you have, let's say $500,000 and in an investment account, and that appreciates $100,000 in a year. Even if you do not sell that stock, you're going to have to pay taxes on that appreciated $100,000, which means you're going to have to sell some of that stock and give it to the government. And it just would
Yep.
cripple the economy in every single moving
Well, and
part.
on top
The
of that,
government's not a good money allocator.
yeah, and on top of that, they're also looking at, so first of all, what you just brought up is like the most heinous thing that has ever been suggested. Because if you
Insanity.
don't receive the money, to be taxed on it will neuter people, make people impotent from actually being able to build financial momentum. It'll cripple the benefit of compounding interest. But now they're also trying to take away the 1031 exchange. And just imagine all the generations of wealth where the 1031 exchange was originally given by the government to say, we want to create tax breaks for those that are helping build the infrastructure of a country. And
Yep.
so when you invest in real estate and you make it, for example, available to other people, they give you tax benefits because they want to say thank you that we as the government are not a
Stimulating the economy.
communistic nation that needs to
Yes.
provide this. Like you're providing it and we want to give you a benefit for that. They want to take that benefit away. So you're going to get to the point where you're just nickel and diming so much that Ayn Rand's universe that she created in her book series of basically the fountainhead and the world falling apart and Atlas Shrugged. That's the America I feel like that we're moving towards right now. So becoming a little more international. I checked it out 5 years ago. Like a bunch of my buddies were moving to Puerto Rico for the tax gains and benefits. And I've got a buddy of mine that actually did it. A friend of mine moved his entire family there. And he's saving millions of dollars right now because he wants to be
Right.
done working in the next 4 years, and moving there would help him achieve the goal. And
You say 40%
unfortunately, a
over
lot of
4
people are thinking
years.
that way.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to. And I think what it's going to take is just smart people learning what, when we're electing these people, whether it's on the right or the left or whatever the case is, what these policies actually mean.
Yep.
And it's important to eliminate the rhetoric. The rhetoric is causing the bulk of the beliefs that the majority of people have.
Mm,
It's just like, for example, and even look at this, the Republican Party of 20 years ago is not the same as it is now.
no,
The Democrat Party is definitely not the same as it was 20 years
it's
from
very
now.
liberal.
It's very liberal. Now the Republicans, they were more, warmongers. They were pushing for the Iraq war and things like that. Now you're seeing the current administration, the current Trump administration is very anti-war and wants peace. So it's weird how they swing, but it's not the Democrat Party in the late, 1990s with Bill Clinton and stuff like that. It is completely different. And it's interesting because when you look at the Forbes 400 list, the majority of those people are donating to the DNC.
Yeah.
And so they say, oh, it's the working class party. It doesn't, it just, to me, it doesn't make sense for that. And the proposals and things that they have, it's not going to work. It's not
Yeah.
Democrats like it was, like I said, in the late 1990s. This is a whole new party of
Yeah.
ideas, and it's interesting.
Let's talk a little bit about how in the last 2 years you grew 293% during a recession. How'd you do it?
Man, one is just sticking to the basics. Like, what do you do good? The customer is always your boss. Customer feedback is key. Execution and doing the little things right. We briefly talked about this not too long ago, is that systems and operations work longer than motivation does.
Mm.
And if you can build operations, not only in your own life, but specifically for this question in your business, it is going to hyper scale your business and systematically grow your business in the way that you want it to. One of the number one rules of business is know your numbers. What is your customer acquisition? What does it cost to acquire an appointment? What does it cost to close a deal? What is your retention rate? What is your churn? All those different things, they're boring, but they're important as a business owner, as a business leader to understand.
Well, I actually, accounting is the language of business. And so you can't play a game if you don't know the numbers. And it took me a decade before I realized that. Where my first business, we did 50 million in transactions. We were not profitable. We weren't who we wanted to be. And it's because I delegated the accounting to the accountant. And I'm like, uh-oh, I actually just delegated some of the most important knowledge and information to a person. So I remember when I was in between opportunities, I took a 4-day MBA course and all I did was study financials. And after that, I'm like, oh, now I know my numbers, and also now I know why I failed, and now I know how to win. And then we started winning like crazy. So I completely agree with that. Talk to me a little bit about this idea of motivation and systems, because in my world, I like take it to a personal level, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people that need motivation, get out of bed in the morning, go to the gym in the morning, maybe read a book or do something that's good for their soul. They're like, I don't feel like it, I just want to sleep in. And I'm like, actually, it's weird. It's a system. You know, a lot of people criticize my system because I wake up at 4 a.m., I do the book thing, I then hop on the treadmill, I do my meditation, I do my workout, I play with my wife, so I have a whole system so that by 9 a.m., it's like everything that mattered is done.
It's awesome.
But it's a system now, and the system actually now has replaced motivation because I rely on it. It's actually a really smart catchphrase that you just said right there.
Yeah. What I learned is that number one, the world just doesn't really care about your feelings and what you've been through. It's a harsh truth. Like, you're not supposed to say that out loud. That's number one. But two, I just found that motivation is something that you have to chase consistently. And if it's what you're relying on to be successful, you're just going to get smoked by the best of the best. The best of the best is going to show up no matter how they feel, and they're going to execute. And they likely have more leverage and output than you do, which makes it even harder to compete with them. So if you're concerned with how you feel or how motivated, you've already lost. And I recommend you stay clear away from entrepreneurship. And so it's like, what I learned is, instead of me obsessing over, man, like for example, let's say like a gym, for example, because everybody is conscious of how much they weigh, wanting to look the right way. Instead of paying for this crazy, thing to lose all this weight and doing Ozempic and all these things that people are doing now, like literally, what if you just time block 45 minutes to go to the gym 5 days a week? And then you make sure that you only eat these certain foods and you stay away from this and you get 8 hours of sleep. If you do that for the next 10 years, I'm positive you are going to be healthy. In the same sense, your business and money, it works the same way. There's predictable ways to grow. So a good way to do this is, who do you want to become, or where do you want your business to be? And then reverse engineer what that would look like. And a simple thing is like, oh, I want my business to revenue this much. Okay, how many salespeople would that take? Okay, how many sales managers would that take? How many people would you need on the operations to do that? What would your daily ad budget be? What things do you not have that that company would have? And then take actionable items daily, meaning how many interviews you're taking, how many resumes you're looking at. All those, you break it down, just first principles, into the simple answers that create that machine to do those things. So it's like you make the action the goal, and by doing the action, the result that you want is a byproduct of it.
I actually love that energy of the reverse engineer because I remember when the pandemic first hit, a
Yeah.
whole bunch of my income was generated from events, and all of a sudden that was poof, that was gone. And
Right.
so that meant millions of dollars. And basically that year we actually didn't grow much. I think we grew like 110%. So we did a
Yeah.
little better than the year before, but 60% of our revenue all came from new things. And
Love
so
that.
what we had to do is we had to go for a swap. And that's what we did is we looked back and we studied our financials and said, okay, let's study our best quarter of non-event revenue, and then let's multiply the numbers and reverse engineer. And we did it. And that quarter, we actually exceeded the goal because we knew how to reverse engineer it.
Love
I
that.
just went through the opposite though, where I had to elect a new sales manager for my company, and my new sales manager had the philosophy of, I want half as many guys with the same amount of leads earning twice as much. And I just basically said, everyone has a Peter level, and their Peter level won't allow for that. So we ran it his way for a quarter, lost $1
Yeah, it
million.
worked. Yeah,
Now
it
we
worked.
swapped it over to my way, and all of a sudden revenue has doubled. And
Yep.
so the reverse engineer is actually a really important principle. I love that. Tell me a little bit what some of the key strategies are that you've used to employ to scale your companies from startups to then thriving companies. What are you using?
Takes people. It takes people. So you need to hire people that are specialized. This is a key word, specialized at things that you are not great at.
Hmm.
So, for example, I understand tech as far as social media and the basics, but I don't know how to code. I don't know how to build out a CRM. But I can hire a tech person that's specialized that and has done that, and they can give me the key points, and they can scale and grow that and make it as efficient as possible with giving me the simple things. And now that portion of my business and the efficiency of the company is improving by utilizing people that are better at or better than me at things that I'm not great at. And so the key is people. You scale your business four ways. Number one, people, advertising, content,
Yeah.
and code, meaning technology. And so you have to just simply look at your business and go, what areas of my business is that lacking? And the better your hires, the better the recruiting that you have, the better the output. It's no
Yeah.
different than, if you have an NBA team, the better the players and the better the
Yeah.
coach, the better the output
Yeah.
and the higher the revenue and the success of the team. And so you just have to look at your team. And the key to that is analyzing standards. Remember, we're
Yeah.
talking about reverse engineering. If you want to become this 3.0 version of your company, you have to think about what standards exist in that organization, how many people, and to your point, Kris, which I've listened to someone else do that same thing and they screwed me over. I'm glad I didn't lose 1 million like you did, but
Yep.
you have to be realistic. And we've had that problem in my business because my reps have such high commission that they could actually not do good and make good money.
Yep.
And so, in doing so, they could hurt customer acquisition and hurt our bottom line. So you have to look at things as an organization, as a system, and as a
Yeah.
machine, and think about your downsides for every single move, like you're
Yeah,
saying.
I want to see if I can catch you off guard right now with a nasty question. Okay, curious
Fire.
on your opinion here. You've got a company that quarter over quarter has really petered off. You're at a 30% margin, so you've optimized. You feel good about your margin, and now you have a choice. You either can take 10% of that, so drop from a 30% to a 20% margin by allocating money into R&D to see if you can find a way to figure out how come you're not growing, how you're not scaling, or are you the kind of person that says, actually, I'm going to be content. I'm going to continue optimizing. I'm not going to try to push this beyond what its natural capabilities or market cap are. And I'm going to now start a new venture. So do you try to grow the stubborn beast that you've optimized, or do you do something new?
It depends on the potential market cap of that industry. So if that specific industry, if you're seeing people innovate and grow in it and just hyper scaling it, and there's some type of potential, or there's a missing link that you said that the risk is worth spending the money on
What if you're
R&D.
not? What if you're a pioneer? What if you're literally at the top of your game?
If you're the top of your game, it depends. It depends on the person. Your instinct should tell you, and your experience and the knowledge is like, is it worth the risk? I've always had the rule that you don't have to jump out of a plane with no parachute. So
Hmm.
you can do this in the right way.
Okay.
You could look at it and start doing R&D, but not hurting your bottom line, or maybe do it for a period of like, look, we're going to invest into this for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
If this doesn't work, we're shifting to this thing. Even
Got it.
Jeff Bezos talks about how many things that they've started within Amazon, because Amazon has 1 million startups within it, that they've lost tons of money. When it doesn't work, close it, get to the next thing as quickly as possible. So I would set a timetable. If you believe in the business and you do think there's some room for innovation, cut the margin 10%, invest it and innovate as best as you can,
I like
and
that.
give yourself a timeline.
I
And
like
if
it.
you don't hit it, stop doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Look into hiring an operator or COO that can run the business and shifting into other industries.
One of my favorite hacks actually with whether it's starting a new division or whether it's starting a new company is I will fantasize delusionally of what I think is possible within like a 90-day or a 30-day period of time. And I give myself time for a little test. And if I think that I can produce 20 units, which would be really good, and 2 units would mean that it was a total bomb. If I think 20 is possible and I give myself a time frame and I actually produce 16 units or 22 units, and I'm like, oh, this thing has promise. Or if during my test period, I'm like, no, I'm sure I can get 20 units and I get 4, I'm like, it turns out that I was delusional. Like,
Yes.
I thought something was possible, but I was so many standard deviations away from reality that it means that I'm not swimming in reality and I need someone to save me from my good idea. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I don't know about you, I would love to hear your thoughts on this because I was naturally such an optimistic, positive person, and I am in general,
Yeah.
but I can tell you my life has gotten so much better when I became an absolute
Realist.
realist.
Yes. Oh,
Because
dude,
what were you
It's
gonna say?
100, it's 100%. Like in my world, it's like, I'm an optimist, I'm a go-getter, I'm motivated, I'm excited. And then the moment I look at the financials, I'm a realist.
Yes.
And it's just like, I don't want any hopium to
No.
weave into my bottom line. And actually I have a kind of an interesting way of measuring it.
Okay.
Every quarter, my company gets together, each division, and then what they do is they basically set goals for the quarter. And then I've got bonuses that I give them based on whether they hit the goal or how much they exceed it by. But when we're off down by more than 20%, it means that we have too much optimism and hopium that has crept in.
I like
And
that.
that's actually a warning sign for me where I'm like, ooh, I actually need to be realistic with my numbers because I've got millions of dollars that are hanging on the line of what we
Sure.
think. And if we're thinking too unrealistic, it's actually going to hurt. Which means
Yes.
that it's like, yeah, so in life, I'm an optimist, and in the books, totally a realist. Sometimes even a little bit of a skeptic just to keep
I
my
am
head straight.
too, man. I'll never forget one of my best regional sales managers I had. He became an RSM and he was doing well, but he actually got a chance to work with me behind the scenes, not like we're on a company call and it's rah rah, right? And he's like, "Damn, bro, you're kind of negative." I'm like, "No, like you're telling me the rep did this and this and this. You have a week and a half or he's gonna quit." He goes, "No, no, no, he won't." All of a sudden he calls me back, "Dude, you're right." And I was because I've done it so many times. And the truth sets you free. It's such a damn true statement.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
more you know about your business and
yeah,
life, the paranoid survive. And like I said, it doesn't mean we're running around scared. It doesn't mean that, Kris and I don't think that we could just do these incredible things, but it's not going to happen unless you have these things set up, whatever they may be.
yeah.
And business teaches you that. And, going into the battlefield blind is idiotic.
But
And
we've
you
done
should,
it. We've done it. We've gotten limbs blown off, and then we
sure.
learn.
Those
Well,
tough lessons, man. When you get those huge L's, man, you learn. You can only
uh-huh.
go again.
Grant, I want to ask you, where do people find you?
As far as social media, so
Yeah.
social media is just at Grant Mitt and then the Grant Mitt podcast. We break down a lot of the stuff we're talking about now, just business, psychology. And what I will say that people do like about my content is you don't necessarily have to be a business owner or even a real estate investor to use my content. You could apply it to every single area of your life, whether you're checking out a hotel and you want to get upgraded, whether you want to network, whether you want to have better relationships. So social media is at Grant Mitt and then the Grant Mitt podcast. And then we've actually started a brand new program working with people who are starting businesses, scaling businesses, and we work with them over the course of 6 months to do just that. And if you check out my social media, you'll be able to figure out that if you're an entrepreneur and you want to scale and grow your business.
I love it, Grant. Listen, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate having you on the show. I think we're definitely going to be having you back. Everyone, if you've enjoyed listening to Grant, his expertise very much is in scaling companies, going from startup to thriving, helping companies excel and succeed. He's a natural born killer in this space, and his numbers prove it. So reach out, connect with him, learn with him. And Grant, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you.